minute now on the countdown. Oh, here we go. All right. All right, we are live. We're here for a webinar on trust and first impressions and kind of that whole topic of why that's important, why that's an issue. I'm here with Ed from The Seal. Ed, how are you doing?
Great, Derek. How are you?
So we'll do some introductions here, especially as we're going live. I know people are just joining in and seeing this. So my name's Derek. I'm a coach and trainer at SBE. We coach and train in the home services. Specifically, our primary focus is residential HVAC. We also do some residential plumbing and a little bit of electrical as well. And kind of the bread and butter of our approach, even in the name of our kind of main training, is the trusted technician, the trusted advisor. Of this idea of trust is a huge component of what makes for successful home service businesses. Ed, you want to introduce yourself and a little bit about your company?
Sure. My name's Ed Marchicelli. I'm the president and founder of theseal.com, previously asktheseal.com. Some people still know us as that. And we basically help companies, mostly home service companies, but other companies, build like and trust between their employees and the company, their employees, and their customers through various ways. One of them is background checks and badges. And I basically was in the home services business. I had an air conditioning and plumbing company, and I was looking for a way to differentiate myself, our company, and build trust. And the seal was something that I wanted and I looked for about a year, and I just could not find. So I went out and started this about 16 years ago.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing kind of switch there from running an HVAC plumbing company, a fairly large one, also, and then moving to basically being a service for HVAC and plumbing companies.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, we started in the official bottom of the Great Recession, which was a fun time to start a new company and a new concept because nobody was doing it.
Yeah.
But actually, that turned out to be a great time to start it because that's when companies were really struggling and they really needed to be able to compete and differentiate themselves.
Yeah, so I really like this topic that we're going to discuss because both of us and both of our companies, we're kind of trying to help solve the same problem in a way, and it's there's not like one answer to it. I think there's a lot of little things that add up to the big thing. So just to kind of set up, the issue, if we think about like in the perfect world, a home service company, whatever they're doing, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, window cleaning, yard maintenance, whatever reason why someone might be interacting with a customer at the house, like why isn't that, the homeowner calls them? It's not like they were probably cold calling. Homeowner calls them, says, I need help. Would you come out to my house? So the company arrives. In a perfect world, they would find the things that are wrong. They would offer the services. The homeowner would be like, oh man, I had no idea all this was going on at my house.
Right.
I will give you money because I live here. This is the air I breathe, the water I drink, my kids drink. Please make it right. But what we know is that doesn't happen. And for a lot of companies, it happens at a very low percent. So Ed, in your opinion and with what you see, what is that breakdown that happens of the homeowners clearly have issues, but then companies arrive and nothing happens? There's a missed sale. So where's the disconnect that happens here?
Yeah, and it's the subject of our webinar, which is trust, and it could be on certain various levels, and it depends on whether it's a male or a female. But it starts with are they going to take my money and run? Not ever show up. Are they going to show up? But is the work going to be done right? At the first time, and then if the work is not done right, will they be there and stand behind it? And then assuming all those other things, then they start worrying about am I getting a fair deal? Am I overpaying for it? And people are willing to pay the right price, but the problem is they don't know the price. And it's easy to buy a car because you can go online and see what the dealer paid and what their rebates are, and if you're a tough negotiator, you can feel pretty good about yourself. You go to buy a boat, not so much. So it's a lot harder to buy a boat because you don't have that same data, and so it comes down to just all these doubts in your mind, and customers are just like us. They're always doubting themselves, and they don't want to make a mistake
Yeah.
financially or going with the wrong piece of equipment.
Yeah. And, it's the homeowner's done a bit of vetting, right? Like a bit of whatever their process is. It could be reading online reviews, it could be looking at maybe the info of the company, of how long they've been in business, or, different things are important to different people, but they probably didn't just like randomly click on one, company when they're in their deal, right? The homeowner does have kind of a vetting process that they go through, right?
Hopefully, I mean, sometimes
Hopefully.
it's you keep calling until someone answers the phone.
That
But
might be the vetting process. They
yeah,
actually,
yeah,
I hear that all the time, actually, of, hey, why are you guys? Well, you're the ones that actually returned my call.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
I
um,
don't assume that people are going to call me back, so I will keep calling until somebody answers the phone, especially if it's something urgent that I need fixed, because I just don't know. If they don't answer the phone, I don't know if they're going to call me back. So I will not stop calling until I get at least one person to answer the phone and I know I've got an appointment.
yeah. Um, so if trust is like the breakdown, right? And then we see that in our companies with low average tickets, low close rates, things like that. And trust is kind of like the root cause. The problem also is that the homeowner doesn't usually specifically communicate, "I don't trust you,"
Yeah,
right?
uncomfortable.
Yeah. So they communicate that in things like, "Oh wow, I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. They're not here. I need to um, do some research. I need to call a few other companies. I was planning to get three bids, and you're number one or you're number two. So I gotta do my due diligence. I gotta do my research. I gotta talk to somebody, right? Those in your mind, Ed, those are how the homeowner communicates
Yeah,
to someone that they don't trust them.
yeah. That's where there's an old saying, buyers are liars, and they're not liars by nature. They're liars because they don't feel comfortable saying, "I don't trust you."
Yeah, that's the defense that we all have. If we feel like we're being sold, or if we feel like we're potentially going to be sold, it's the classic salesperson. Hey, how can I help you? I'm just looking, right? It's the
Yep.
classic script that we all follow, where
Yes.
it's likely a lie, but that's our natural defense mechanism that we have when we feel like our radar is getting a little tingly about this, is to lie.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But I think there's another like psychological component of there where people who would normally view themselves as very honest, full of integrity, ethical, I would never tell a lie, don't think it's wrong to lie to a salesperson, right?
Right.
Because they're liars also, and if you like lie to a liar, it like cancels itself out or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, people don't. I am a value shopper. I am not a price shopper. So when I know I'm going to do business with a company, I don't tell them that, and I don't tell them that I know that they have a great reputation or even that they were referred, because there may be a sliding scale of price there. Like, and it's human nature. You tell somebody that they've got the sale and that you're not calling anyone else. There's a temptation there to go high with your price. So
Yeah,
uh, even the value shoppers will lie to you and tell you that they're going with the cheapest and that sort of
it's going
thing.
to
And
come down
sometimes
to
it's because they don't
price.
trust you, and sometimes they're just saying it because they want your best price. They want you, but they just want to know that they're not paying more than they have to.
Yeah. Uh, so then we got to think about, okay, if we're all bought into the idea that trust is a big problem, right? And then we're not getting accurate info from the homeowner. So how are we actually going to fully help them if they won't be honest about like the problem or their budget or their timelines? And it's just a complicated mess, right? That all stem from a breakdown in trust. So then I think it's important to talk about, well, what is trust? Like, if that's what we're missing, and if that's what we need, how do we create it? How do we build it? And so it seems like, Ed, part of why you left running an HVAC plumbing company was to help solve this problem for a lot of businesses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, people do business with people they like and trust, and so they one of the problem. So some of the best companies out there and the most trustworthy companies, they don't do a good job of building trust, and they feel like the customer should know it, and the customer doesn't always know it.
Yeah.
When you're honest and when you're doing a great job and you know you're the best at what you do, you kind of have an attitude, and you feel like people should know that. And you blame the customer when they don't know that, and it's really up to us, our technicians and all of our employees to understand that we can't just assume that the customer knows that. And then, when we build trust too, we need to do it in a meaningful and verifiable way, which is why we started the seal, because, we background checked all of our employees, and that there was two problems with that. One is we couldn't prove it. And two, our customers could just say, yeah, we do that too. So
Sure.
if you build trust on something that isn't meaningful and isn't verifiable, it's useless. So that's why, I didn't just have the idea to start the seal. I went out and looked for it because I assumed somebody was doing it, and I found nobody was. So we centered ours on people liking and trusting the person coming, getting a verification, not the actual background check, but getting a verification of the background check of the person, and even a bio. Whatever the employee is willing to share. It's usually a combination of professional and personal. And then we also allow them to record a video bio. So they've not only seen the person's face, they've seen it on a badge that they know means they've been background checked. They know a little bit about the person personally. And it makes a big difference when they start knowing personal things about you that you're willing to share, because it makes you a person and not a salesperson.
Yeah.
You're a salesperson when you're showing up, but when they know what church you go to or that you coach your kid's soccer game and that sort of thing, all of a sudden you're not a salesperson.
Real person. Yeah.
And our clients, a lot of times when they show up at the door, the customer says, "Where do I know you from?" Because we've ticked all of those boxes in their subconscious. We've seen their face. We know something about them. We've heard their voice, so they inherently trust that person because they feel like they know them.
Yeah, I agree. Back maybe a year or so ago, because again, I mentioned at SBE, we coach and train companies. We want to coach them on a number of aspects of their business, but and also specifically too, like for their technicians, the people that are going out and making contact with the homeowner. Like, is there a good process in place that they can follow that builds trust and doesn't hurt trust? And so, like I said, we even call it the trusted technician. So I researched maybe a year ago. I really went down this like rabbit trail of what is trust. Like, if we could break it down to its ingredients, what are those ingredients? Because like we all kind of, I feel, have like this instinctive thing of, we say things like, you know what, I just really don't trust that person, or that seems like a trustworthy person. And what are we actually looking at when we make those, especially first impression judgment statements? And I found a lot of different theories. Some people say it's 5 things or 10 things, but I think if you like combine them all, what I found is basically 3 things. And you were just speaking about what I think is the first thing, which is authenticity. Like, is this person who they say they are? It's going to be tough to trust somebody who's not authentic, which basically the opposite of that would be like fake in some ways. And I think that encompasses a number of things, of even some things that I think companies really overlook, like, does this person actually work for this company that they say they do, right? Does and I lived in Phoenix for a number of years. I heard something that Phoenix is like one of the most like kind of highest level of home break-in type of violence of any city. And it's not what we imagine. It's they come up with some type of ruse that gets you to open the door.
Yeah, somebody's at the back door while you're at the front door. Yeah.
Yeah. And so people pose as city workers, Amazon workers, different workers, come up with some type of thing. And so that's a little bit of like, hey, I see you through my little peephole, or that's kind of outdated now. It's probably like the doorbell camera. Yeah. And are you who I'm expecting? Are you who you say you are? There's a lot of that goes into authenticity, right?
Absolutely.
That seems to be part of what you were talking about, of that piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, 20 years ago, we used to just pick companies out of the yellow pages, and the first 3 companies that had the full page ads were the reputable companies,
Yeah.
And now everyone's got, the guy robbed somebody or wearing an Amazon uniform the other day, stole somebody's package. So
Yeah.
everyone has logoed vehicles now. Everyone has, uniforms. It's just hard to tell the good guys from the bad guys these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's an important component. And then the other, I said there are three things that I kind of lumped. So it's authenticity. The second one is competency. Right. And competency is a tough one to demonstrate in a first impression. So I think there's like little things that we look at, like obviously arriving on time. Yeah. Is the van clean or dirty? Are we dressed, like you said, in logos? And it's like little things that I think we make a jump to. I think this is a competent person. A big one that I find that a lot of technicians or salespeople have never considered is getting out of the vehicle immediately. Right? There's a little bit of this kind of component of, if we're pulling up to the house and just sitting out there.
Right.
And maybe it's just completely like we're not even thinking about it of, oh, hey, the office needed to get us. We didn't want to talk on the phone while we were driving, so we want to get there and call them back. But that's actually a little bit of the homeowners watching, and there's a little bit of judging and wanting to see prompt pull up, get out of the house. That's part of a first impression. So then the third thing that I think goes into trust is empathy. That ability to understand all those other components of why a homeowner wouldn't trust us. Empathy is that ability to put ourselves into other people's perspectives.
I think that is, I think that's one of the most valuable assets that any human being can have. I had a sales manager very early on tell me that, he said, just treat people like they're your brother or your mother, and you have empathy. And if you don't, man, I agree with 100%.
So I think with both of the ways that we assist these companies, it takes a bit of empathy to realize, oh, homeowners trust is the issue, right? Let me put myself into the perspective of the homeowner. Let me have some empathy about this is an intrusion into their home. This is an interruption into their home. This is a stranger. That's not normal.
Yep. Yeah. If you can display that empathy, it doesn't make this an adversarial relationship. Like this person is here to sell me something or to get more money. That I don't know. I might consider moving that to number one.
Yeah. I call it the trust triangle. So it's the three. Yeah. So there isn't necessarily like a primary or right. They're all the important corners of the triangle. The authenticity, competency, empathy. And then if we think about our process, does our first impression demonstrate all three of those things? And does it demonstrate it 100% of the time? Not when we feel like it, not on our better days, not on our first call of the day versus the last call of the day. Does our routine and everything that we're saying and communicating as a company demonstrate those three things?
Yes, absolutely. Repeatable, just, like a machine.
Yeah. For a company that might, be considering, Ed, like the part of it that you bring into it, like where do they typically need to start? Like what would be like the way that a company would start to work with you guys? Like what info would they have? Like what is it that you're looking at for the company? We want to just talk a little bit of like how it works.
Yeah, sure. So, you can see our logo behind me, but we make sure the company is properly licensed for the business that they're in. We make sure they have the proper insurance, and then we do criminal background checks on the owner, anyone coming out to the property, and anyone handling credit cards. And, we have a very fair criteria. So if somebody fails our criteria, they've been convicted recently of violence or theft. So we don't disqualify on DUIs. We don't disqualify on drug convictions. Those are on the background check reports. The owners will see them, but we're just looking. We talked about, protecting the company against wrongful hire, wrongful retention lawsuits, protecting the customers and the other employees. And on the other side, not being so strict that you're discriminating or that you're, making it difficult to hire good people. So it's a very fair criteria. I had 165 employees when I sold my business, so I know how hard it is to find people. So the criteria is not a barrier to hiring people. So when they pass the criteria, we issue them a photo ID card. And so they not only get those hard copy ID cards, but they get the images of them. And we're integrated with all the major CRM systems so that when you dispatch somebody to a customer's house, they have not only every CRM on the planet these days can send a photo of the person coming. There's no value or differentiation. I mean, you could send them Ted Bundy's photo, good looking guy, right?
Yeah.
But here's your technician. That's meaningless. This is the image of their badge with proof that they've passed, their bio, which is a combination of professional and personal, and that video bio is huge. I mean, it really, by the time they know something and they hear and see that person speak, I mean, the most frequent feedback we get is the homeowner says at the door, "Where do I know you from?" They feel like they've met him. And because we're ticking all those boxes in the subconscious. So that's really the start. It's the start of the relationship, and it's a trusting relationship. And, we also help them get reviews and that sort of thing because of that relationship. People are more likely to buy from people they like and trust. They're more likely to refer them, and they're more likely to do reviews for them.
Yeah.
So we basically build that like and trust bridge.
Yeah. I think that's, checking off a number of those things of like the ingredients of trust that we're talking about, especially like, authenticity. We've talked about that. We've talked about empathy. Empathy is kind of a skill, I think, right? Where we can improve it. Things like that. We can do things that show we're empathetic.
Yep.
Competency is a tough one to demonstrate because the way that we might think about competency is, well, I need to be able to do the repair to show that I'm competent. I need to be able to do the install or do the work. That's how I show my competency. But you have to pass the competency test before you're allowed to do those things. That's the really challenging.
I got my teeth cleaned yesterday morning, and it was a new technician, and it was nothing I didn't know, but she talked me through it. She talked about how tartar was formed, and but I felt like even though it was all stuff I knew, the information she shared with me, I left there feeling like she was more competent. She probably did the exact same job that everyone else does, but I left there and I've thought about it too. And I was like, boy, she was really good. And then I thought about the reason I thought she was really good is what she shared with me.
Yeah. I teach a lot of technician classes. I mentioned like our process and stuff. So teaching them on this process. And so a lot of times there's a little thought exercise that I like to do, which one kind of helps them a little bit understand empathy, but then speaks to this. And the thought exercise is, let's say that you have a child, one of your kids needs surgery. So obviously this is very stressful. This is an important decision, and you're going to need to meet with a surgeon and make a decision on who you're going to choose to do this surgery on your kid. Right? You don't get to watch them do surgery. Like that's not how it works. You've got to sit across from them, in an office. So how are you going to know that this is the right surgeon that you're going to use for this very important thing? Like, what are the things you're going to look at? Just as like a little thought exercise, and so some of the things that come up is, well, I want to see their diploma, which it's hanging on the wall or something like that. I want to know that they've done this before. I want to know that they researched a little bit, like they read the notes or they ask, but it's a good thought exercise, because I think then if we now translate this to the home, a lot of HVAC companies don't put any thought into this part of the equation. They're just like, well, why wouldn't you choose us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's so common, and it's always the good guys that think, why wouldn't you choose us? And the guys that aren't trustworthy are the ones that are out there trying every way to earn the customer's trust.
Yeah, and so when we start thinking about those things, like I said, it's not one thing. It's not one thing that boom, if we check that one box, oh, we're
Yeah.
good. It's this accumulation of 50 little things or 100
Yeah.
little things, and that's the problem. Is if we don't kind of nail all those things and we leave one or two,
Yeah.
we might run into some issues.
Yeah. And that's where empathy comes in too, because you want the person to know and feel how important that is to you. You don't want somebody cold and clinical, right? That's going to
Right.
come in and just, come in. He's a cutter, he's going to cut and do the surgery. You want him to know that how important his family member is to you. And you want him to come home that night, or the next day. And then that's the kind of empathy, and you want to know that they care.
I think this is where like the value of reviews also comes into play, because I think as consumers we want to see that review that speaks to us of, oh, that's the same issue that I had, that's the same concern that I had, and they took care of somebody in that scenario, right? That's what we're looking for with a review, right?
Yeah. Comments like you see a star rating, it's meaningless.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
You want detailed comments, and it's important to get that. And people are more likely to do reviews for people they like and trust, and they're more likely to refer them. Referrals are the gold standard, right?
Yeah, because trust is already accelerated on. If we trust the person that's doing the referral, there's a little bit of transference there, right?
And nobody wants to refer somebody that they don't trust 100%, because you never hear the end of it.
Yeah, you'll look
If
bad.
you recommend somebody and they do a bad job, you're going to hear it bad for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not recommend somebody than to recommend somebody I trust 80%.
Yeah, that's actually a really telling part of our approach as a coaching and training company is let's look at the data. Like it might feel it goes this way or it might feel that, but we actually need to look at the data. And it's always kind of interesting if you can isolate like what's the close percentage on a referral versus the close percentage on just somebody found us. And if those things are really out of like alignment, like obviously referrals are going to just have a higher one, but if it's like a really stark difference, that to me says, okay, you're not good at building trust. You need that trust transference in order to happen. And you don't have a good process to create trust. You got to rely on the referral trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Ed, I feel like the time has flown by. We've been talking for like coming up on 30 minutes. So we kind of need to wrap this in the next few minutes. Especially what I love is that you have that background of having ran one of these companies. So you know exactly like the pain points that go into it. So if you were to put on kind of like your hat of being back and running the HVAC and plumbing company, and like it's especially HVAC, we're getting into the summer, it's demand season, there's a million things kind of going on. Like what would be your best kind of recommendation for someone who's like, okay, I agree, I can see it now, there's a trust issue where we're not doing something to create trust, of like how the owner should start to tackle, because we mentioned there might be 50 things. Like how would we prioritize this?
It was a game changer for me, and ultimately led me to the seal. Is this is 20 years ago. We implemented a CRM system that tracked all of our leads, and our salespeople were very confident they had a super high close rate. And when they didn't close something, it was because customers cheap, or that they weren't really in the market and that sort of thing. One day I started looking at our open deals, and I wanted to know why we weren't closing more. They always thought they were at 90%. Once we started tracking, we were closer to 50% close rate. So on Friday afternoons were always my slowest time. I started calling prospects that were in our CRM that we had presented to that were open calls, and I started asking them. I introduced myself as the owner, very non-confrontational, and what I found out is almost all of them had gone somewhere else. Like, so they were open in our system as not sold, but they had actually bought from somebody else. So in a non-confrontational way, I asked them, why didn't you go with us? And what I found was, and we had 165 employees, which is a big company 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And so
what I heard from them was they felt pretty good with us. They felt like they would get, a good job and everything else, and they knew we had a good reputation. But they said the other guys worked harder for the sale, and they felt just as good. In some cases, they said they went for a lower price, but they felt just as comfortable with that company. It wasn't that they went with the lower price; the other company made them feel just as confident, and the price was lower. And some, I was surprised to find out, actually spent more than ours because we got outsold,
Yeah.
and we didn't know it. And so that's where I realized that companies did trust us, but the problem is they trusted the other guys too. So when you trust two companies, what do? You go with the
Who
less
wins?
expensive one.
Yeah.
So that's where I said I need something that isn't just me saying, because I can gain their trust, but if the other guy does too, then and they're cheaper, they're going to go with them. So I said I need something that differentiates me in a meaningful and verifiable way, and the other guy can't just say that too and say and be a good salesman and say, oh yeah, we background check our guys too. So I wanted to be able to say we have a badge, and we this proves that we've been background checked. So the other guys just can't say, oh, we do that too. It's like, okay, well, where's your badge?
Yeah.
I didn't get an email with your badge and your bio and proof of background check. So, but actually calling those customers put everything in perspective for me.
Yeah. I I love that. I am a huge believer in as companies like that massive need to differentiate. Because if there's overall a sense of distrust for the industry, you might fall into walks like a duck, talks like a duck category. And so, like you mentioned, yeah, like getting the badge, getting the seal, that's a differentiator. Also, from like the training side and the coaching side and the processes, are we asking different questions that everyone asks? Are we approaching how we uncover problems differently? Than when we find an issue in the house, is the way that we bring that up different from everyone else? Like there's just in every manner, I think we need to differentiate ourselves.
Yeah, if you don't, you gotta be the cheapest. So nobody
That's
wants
a
to
way to
live in that world.
differentiate is to be the
So yeah, if you
cheapest.
don't
Yeah,
if you don't
yeah,
differentiate, you better be cheap.
yeah. All right. I think we can end right there. I think that's the perfect spot. So Ed, thanks so much for doing this with me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, happy to do it.